Hello, my name is Jennifer McIntyre, and I am the Human Resources Director over Substitutes. Thank you so much for participating in this training session today. First, let me begin by saying thank you to all of our substitute teachers in Victoria ISD. VISD has over 800 teachers and over 500 paraprofessionals servicing approximately 13,000 students. As you can imagine, even on a normal school day, we would have dozens of staff out for personal business, personal or family leave, or staff development. Without you, we are not able to operate. You literally save the day each and every day, and we appreciate you answering the call. For those of you who are new to Victoria or maybe just new to VISD, it may be interesting to know that we are divided into an East and a West feeder pattern. Students attending Howell and STEM feed into Victoria East, and students attending Cade and Patty Welder feed into Victoria West High School. We have 14 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, and 2 high schools. In addition, we have an early childhood center, a career and technical education center, a DAEP, and a Student Success Academy. Further information on each of these campuses can be found on the VISD website. As a substitute, you may be wondering what your responsibilities are. There are many, and you can find them in our substitute handbook, which is what we are going to go over in this training. So this substitute handbook is on the list of roles and responsibilities regarding your role as a substitute. Although this is a document, we are going to hit on the main point, and then it would be your responsibility as a substitute to ensure that you review this document in its entirety to ensure that you know what is fully expected of you. This document can be found in several different places. You can find it in the link in this training, this document that you're doing right now. You can also find it on the website. And then, of course, if you need assistance locating it, you can come into our office to find it. But again, we're going to spend some time today going through this document and really touching on the most important pieces of it. So as we scroll down, of course, you see your table of contents. It's going to take you to any of the pieces that you are wanting to review. Then the first few pages gives you contact information, especially for our department. And so we have Spring Gann with our clerk who also works with all of our substitutes. So she is your point of contact when it comes to anything regarding substituting in VISD, the Smart Fund Express program, which we'll discuss in a little bit, but she definitely is someone you can reach out to if your questions. Again, I am one of our HR directors, particularly with substitutes, professionals, and secondary teachers. Our human.resource@VISD.net email, and then 8 to 5 every day. Page 4 is a welcome message that just goes into more detail of what I mentioned at the beginning. The next couple of pages talk about the various campuses that we have. So you have both the names of the campuses and departments, as well as a good contact number that will take you to the office. Achieving excellence for all. We are all about achieving excellence. This year, we are wanting to elevate excellence. And no matter what position you are in, substitute, paraprofessional, teacher, custodial, maintenance, child nutrition, if you work for VISD, it is all about achieving excellence for everyone. And so again, we want to make sure that you are familiar with all of the responsibilities and all of the requirements of your position in order for you to be successful, but also for our students to be successful as well. Next page discusses our central administration staff. So, of course, our superintendent of schools, Ms. Coyasso. Mr. Gabrish is our assistant superintendent of administrative services. Michelle Yates is our chief financial officer. And then we have a little bit of a change in our human resources department for this year. So this year we have Melissa Carell, who is the chief of innovation and HR. And then in addition to myself, we also have Landon Zamikal, who is the Director of Human Resources for our classified staff as well as elementary professional staff. You'll see our mission statement, again, as we just mentioned, achieving excellence for all. And then the vision, the mission of Victoria ISD is to provide rigorous, relevant learning and life experiences so that all students contribute positively to society. Next page details our VISD Board of Trustees, as well as all of the meeting dates. Page 9, you will see our 2026-2027 school calendar. And again, just as a reminder, we only need substitutes on the days that students are in session, that they are at school. So when we have holidays, when we have professional development days, those days we typically do not need a sub. So do know that all of our instructional days are the days that you will sign up for substitute assignments. So starting on page 10, I want to point out some pieces to this. So as a substitute, I understand my responsibilities include, but are not limited to those listed below. So again, I'm not going to read every single one of these bullets, but I want to focus on a few of the most important pieces. So the second bullet, I will cancel any substitute assignments I have previously accepted at least 24 hours in advance whenever possible to allow campuses sufficient time to secure a replacement. So we recognize, yes, there are some times where we have an emergency where late at night or first thing in the morning, you are sick, your child is sick, something happens to your car, there's some kind of emergency, and we recognize that sometimes life happens and you do have to cancel last minute. But what we want to ensure is that if you do know that I've picked up a job a week from now, but 3 days before that, we realize something's happened, I can't take the job anymore, that you make sure that you cancel the job just so that the schools have enough time to try to find a suitable replacement. Also, going down about halfway, I understand the campus may change my assignment once I arrive. I understand that upon arrival and before the sub hours begin, there is the chance that my services may not be needed. Should this happen, I may be sent home and in turn not eligible for sub pay as a result. So there's always so many moving pieces and parts when it comes to a day on a campus. And so you may have picked up a teacher job a month ago, and when you show up on the campus the morning of, there might be the potential that that job is no longer needed because at the last minute, the teacher decided, I'm going to go ahead and come to work. And so if that happens, the office staff is to let you know right when you get there that that job is no longer available. Now, sometimes there may not be any other jobs available at that campus to pick up. And so then your services would not be needed at that campus. But there are also times where you might show up, you might be told this position isn't available anymore, but we have something else. And then it's your decision to make on whether or not you want to accept the new position. Please keep in mind, though, that if you have originally picked up a teacher spot, you get to the campus and they say, we don't have a teacher spot, but we have a para spot. Do know that there is a difference in pay. So we're going to get to that in a little bit as well. But subbing for a teacher versus subbing for a para, there are different daily rates. So you would just need to keep that in mind, that the pay is going to be dependent on what position you take. Then the next page, it talks about substitute pay rates. And so we have lots of different pay rates depending upon the assignment and what position you're taking. And so if we look at this, it says subs for teachers. Teacher substitutes will be paid an additional $10 over the established teacher substitute daily rate if you substitute on a Monday, a Friday, as well as the day immediately preceding or following a student holiday. But this is not applicable to long-term substitutes because they're already receiving a different rate. So an additional $10 for Mondays, Fridays, and a day before or after a holiday. Also, teacher substitutes can apply for an annual $40 payment for completing all VISD employee required trainings. You must complete trainings prior to substituting in 26-27, but only after substituting 10 full-time days in a teacher sub role during the 26-27 school year, and self-initiating and submitting a written request to our department requesting the $40 payment. So one, you want to make sure you complete your training prior to the start of the 26-27 school year. And then after you've worked 10 full-time days, could also be 20 half days, as long as it equals to 10 full-time days, you could then submit a written request, and we will then alert payroll that you meet the requirement to get the $40. And then in the middle of the page, it shows all the different rates for substitutes. So depending upon the level of education you have is the rate that you get for subbing. So you'll notice that we have rates for Texas certified employees, substitutes that have some type of degree, whether it be bachelor's degree or a master's degree. An associate's degree does not go towards this rate, only bachelor's or master's. And then substitutes with a high school diploma or a GED. Then you'll see subs for paraprofessionals. Those have a different daily rate. And then we also have different daily rates for RNs, LVNs, and one-on-one special education nurses. You'll also see that in addition to just the standard daily rate, that there is also rates for an absent teacher versus a vacant position if you're in a long-term role. We're going to talk a little more about that in a minute. In order to qualify to receive the long-term sub rate, you have to have worked at least 10 consecutive days in one position, and then starting on the 11th day, that's when that long-term sub rate is going to kick in. Now, if you decide I no longer want to do this job anymore and I want to go pick up a new job, then your pay would revert back to the regular daily rate depending on your position. Additional notes, your credentials do not determine your pay rate. Sub pay rates are strictly based upon the job type position for which you are substituting. So if you are a sub with a bachelor's degree, and if you sub for a teacher, you get $90 per day. If you come down and work for a sub, you're going to get $70 per day. So the degree doesn't take effect into pay with paras. It's only for teachers. Then when you go down, so the next page gives you all of your substitute biweekly pay schedule. So our substitutes, you are paid twice a month. So this lists all of the report due dates as well as paydays for subbing. Substitute work hours. You want to ensure that depending upon the campus that you go to, that you arrive at the appropriate time. And so elementary, middle school, high school, and our CTE center all have varying times. So you're going to want to make sure that you keep that in mind, that whether you are picking up a full day job or an AM or PM job, that you know when to arrive and how long you work. That time will also be listed in the job when you go to pick it up. So moving on to a little bit more of a discussion on long-term assignments and pay. So there are two types of long-term assignments. One is for an absent teacher and the other is for a vacant position. So we want to make sure that you understand the difference between the two. So an absent teacher means that there is a teacher assigned to this class, but they are absent. So this could be a teacher that's on maternity leave, a teacher that is either he or she is sick or a family member is sick and they need to take an extended period of time away from the classroom. But there is a teacher assigned to that classroom. They're just going to be out for several weeks because of a situation. That's an absent teacher. But then we also have long-term assignments because of a vacant position. A vacant position means that there is not a teacher assigned to that classroom. So it could be that we start the school year and the school has not been able to hire a teacher for that spot. Or it could be that a teacher leaves in the middle of the school year and then it's vacant until the school hires another teacher. And so that is a vacant position. And so whether you are subbing in a long-term assignment for an absent teacher versus a vacant position, those are going to have two different sub rates. So we want to make sure that you are aware of that. And then we also talk to campus staff and administrators to make sure that they understand it and they are coding it correctly. So just again, making sure everyone is in the loop with that. And then as we mentioned on a previous page, again, you've got to work 10 days in that assignment. And then starting on the 11th day, that long-term rate is going to begin. Notice substitutes regarding paychecks. So it is the substitute's responsibility for their jobs in Smart Find Express to ensure all work during a pay period have been entered by a campus secretary. You're going to want to make sure that you're going in, if you work certain days, these are shown. Long-term assignments and pay, so summer and substitute. So you do not work in the summer or in Victoria ISD's summer program, but we do give you what is called a letter of reasonable assurance every year in May to show that your position is secure for the following year. So even though you're not working in the summer, you're not getting a paycheck in the summer, we give you that letter of reasonable assurance, you sign it so that in August, you just have to pick up right where you left off and start picking up sub jobs. So again, every May you will get those. When that letter of reasonable assurance comes to you in May and you've decided, I don't want to sub for VISD anymore, then you just would not sign it and let our office know, I'm no longer going to be subbing for VISD. Retirees as substitutes. So we do hire retirees as substitutes, but we want to make sure that if you are a retiree, that you have spoken not only to TRS, but you have also spoken to the payroll department to determine what your subbing schedule can look like, because depending upon how soon it is that you're coming back after retiring, there are some stipulations on how many days you can sub and for which assignment. So again, if you are a retiree, make sure that you have talked to TRS as well as payroll so that your TRS is not affected by subbing. When you are on campus, so reporting behind campus. So when you are arriving, there are things that you must do in order to be processed. So we want to make sure prompt that you look at those times that you're supposed to arrive, that you arrive in a timely manner, that you can get to your classroom, get prepared, and you need to go. Upon arrival, you're going to stay in the office, write down your arrival time, check out. You will receive information. They may give you a key. They may give you a special badge so you can get in and out of the doors. And then if there's anything in particular for that day, the office staff is going to give you that. You also should be receiving applicable emergency and non-emergency procedures. So we want to make sure that depending upon what campus you're on, that you know those emergency procedures and know the directions to take if something were to occur. And then we check everybody in and out through the Raptor system. And so that is also another place that we communicate to staff if there are emergency situations. So we do suggest you downloading the Raptor app. It's optional, but highly recommended just so you can be aware of what's going on if anything were to arise. Classroom etiquette and confidentiality is on the next page. So we want to make sure that you put your personal belongings somewhere that's secure, that you write your name on the board so that students know who you are. Check in with a neighboring teacher just so that way they know who you are and that you're there. You want to make sure that you review the lesson plans for the day and know what is expected of you and what it is that you're going to be communicating to students. Make sure that you are following what the teacher has asked you to do. Do not deviate from that unless you're told by an administrator or someone on the campus that something's changing for the day, but always follow the teacher's lesson plans and guidelines. Again, locating and reviewing emergency plans that are in that classroom and on that campus. And then if you feel like you're missing something or you need something, check in with the neighboring teacher or administrators on the campus. And then confidentiality, you are going to be with many different students on different campuses. You're going to be privy to information that is confidential. And so we want to make sure that anything that you may know or find out about students in your classroom, that is something that you keep to yourself and you are only sharing it with those authorized employees that are on the campus. During the school day, we want to make sure, again, you're following the teacher's lesson plan, you're using positive reinforcement, being fair, firm, and consistent. We know that when the teacher's away, sometimes students feel like they can get away with things or try things that their teacher would not allow, but you are the adult in the room, you are the professional in the room, and so you still have to make sure that you're maintaining that consistency from the teacher. Be positive and find diverse ways to pull students into the lesson. Act at once if an accident occurs that is serious enough to require immediate attention. If something happens, whether a student gets hurt or students get in a fight or something is happening that you are going to need assistance for, making sure that you are either buzzing the front office, getting a teacher's attention next door, shouting in the hallway if you can't find anybody, doing something so that you can get assistance and the students that are in need get assistance. And then allowing a student to see the nurse, even if you are not convinced that they are not feeling well. So we know sometimes, again, students like to get out of class, but again, if they tell you they need to go to the nurse, make sure you send them to the nurse so that nothing happens. So even if you feel like maybe they might not be entirely sick, you still want to make sure that they're sent to the nurse and let the nurse make that judgment call. And then at the end of the day, so just as there were checking in procedures at the beginning of the day, there are also checking out procedures. So make sure that you leave detailed notes and your phone number if the teacher has any questions. Consider the questions below when completing your report. What were you able to complete in the lesson plan? What were you unable to complete and why? What did you add to the lesson plan and why? Which students were helpful? Were there any problems? So just giving the teacher information when he or she returns so that you can, so that they can be aware. Leave student work organized and on the teacher's desk. If the teacher left an answer sheet and you have the time, you could review the student's work, but it's not something that's required. Return any equipment and supplies where they go, and leave the classroom in an orderly manner. We want to make sure that students help you clean and keep things organized, and we want to make sure too, when the student arrives to campus the next day, they're not left with a mess. Make sure the students make it safely to the bus or designated areas for pickup if applicable. Leave the teacher's desk and room as you found them, and then of course sign out and follow any checkout procedures that the campus has at the end of the day. And then again, make sure that you sign in and out because that is that verification for you to get paid that we send to payroll. Conduct while on the job. So we want to make sure that you're following these minimum standards at least, and then there's so many more that we could discuss, but these are the minimum standards of conduct. These standards are not intended to be an all-inclusive or cover every possible situation, and violations of these standards will result and corrective action, ranging from a verbal written warning to termination from employment. So the minimum standards of conduct for a substitute include, but are not limited to. We want to make sure that you abide by all federal, state, and local laws and district policies and regulations. Maintain a professional relationship with all students, both inside and outside the classroom. Do not take pictures of students and do not communicate with students via social media, email, or texts. Do not provide students with your personal contact information or ask for their personal information. Refrain from the abuse or inappropriate use of alcohol or drugs during substitute assignments. Turn off your cell phone during instruction when the students are in the classroom. Laptop computers, handheld video games, magazines, books, newspapers, and food and drink other than water are not permitted in the classroom. Do not use the teacher's computer unless you are working a long-term assignment for over 10 days and have received permission from the proper authorities, and follow all policies and procedures related to social media found in policy DH. Attendance, we want to make sure that you report to work at least 15 to 20 minutes before the start of the subjob. Never leave the students alone or unsupervised in the classroom. This is regardless of the school that you're at and the age. Whether you are subbing in a kindergarten classroom or you are subbing for a senior classroom, we do not want to leave the students alone or unsupervised. Do not leave the campus during working hours. In the case of a personal emergency, you do need to let a campus administrator or front office member know that you have to leave. Remain at work until the end of your work assignment, which may include the teacher's end of the day duties. So even though the school day may end, your role that you're covering for may have some kind of after school duty that needs to be completed. Appearance and dress, the next page lists all of the dress code standards. So just make sure that you look at that and follow that appropriately. Safety and security. So of course, student safety is at the utmost importance, and we want to make sure that you as a substitute are following all of the rules that we all follow, no matter what position that we're in, to ensure that students and staff are safe at all times. Refraining from inappropriate behavior, making sure that you follow the Educator Code of Ethics and the Educator Code of Standards. And again, this is just another list of all the things that we want to make sure that you are not doing. And so the following must be refrained from all times. So make sure that you're really taking a look at that and following that. Removing or borrowing district property, using work time, material and or district facilities and equipment for personal work and activities, unauthorized soliciting or selling on district premises, acting in a manner that interferes with or disrupts the work environment, allowing any unauthorized individual into any district facility, sleeping while on duty in the classroom, using inappropriate language or actions, providing students with your personal contact information, unauthorized use of the computer or internet, working on personal business during the school day, and soliciting students for private enterprises. So again, making sure that we're refraining from all of those things. Computer access, electronic devices. We want to make sure that you, again, are not using computers unless it's a long-term assignment and you've been given permission. Change of name, address, or telephone number. So this is a screenshot of the employee records whenever you go in. If you are needing to change your name, your address, your telephone number, any of your personal information, shows you how to do that. Removal from the substitute list. So there are circumstances that may remove you from the substitute list. And so I want to focus on the bolded pieces. So substitutes who do not work a single full 8-hour job during a 3-week period will be dropped from the substitute list unless the substitute has contacted the HR office to indicate the reason he or she has not worked during this period of time. So again, every 3 weeks, we are going to look to see if you have subbed at least a single full 8-hour day. If you have not worked one single full 8-hour day, then we are going to reach out to you, ask you if you want to remain on the list, and then go from there. A lot of times we will reach out to a sub and they will let us know that they've been sick or a family member has been sick and they really want to sub with us. They just haven't had the time. And so we keep them on the list. Other times we reach out to subs and we don't have a response, so we then remove them from the list. But every 3 weeks, we do a review of substitutes to see, have they worked at least one day? Release from the substitute list will be considered the equivalent of a voluntary resignation from employment with the district. You will have to reapply and complete the entire application process from the beginning if you wish to return. So removing you from the list doesn't mean you can never sub with us again. It just means that if we remove you because you haven't subbed in a 3-week period, you have to reapply and go through the process again in order to sub again. But we also have another way based on behavior. So if a principal were to reach out to us and let us know that they do not want a substitute to sub on their campus any longer, we ask them for reasons. So we have to make sure that we have a reason for why the substitute is no longer allowed to go to that campus. The administrator is expected to meet with that substitute to let them know what is the reason for not being asked back. And then we go into the system and exclude that sub from that campus. We also make note of which campus or campuses a substitute has been blocked from. Sometimes, yes, it might be one campus, there just might not be a good fit for that sub and for that campus. But if we start having multiple principals calling us, asking us to remove one sub from the list, then we may have to pull that sub in and have a conversation or remove them from the list altogether. So that is why it is so crucial that you follow the rules that we've been discussing, the expectations, and refraining from any of those behaviors that we discussed so that you can stay on a campus and stay with VISD to sub. And then again, at any time, if you decide you do not want to sub with VISD any longer, or you move, or something happens, you just let us know. You can call us, you can email us, and we'll remove you from the substitute list. Payroll, as we discussed earlier, you are paid twice a month, so we're on a bi-weekly schedule. The payroll schedule is sent from the individual campus to the payroll department, and each campus shows payroll. This is who subbed. This is what they are owed. A substitute is paid on a straight per diem basis. And then if a substitute, upon the request of the campus principal, reports and teaches any fractional part of the morning or afternoon of a school day, the substitute is entitled to a half day's pay. So if you work anywhere between 0 and 4 hours, you're entitled to half a day's pay. If you work 4 or more hours, you're entitled to a full day's pay. Okay. So just keep that in mind. 0 to 4 hours, half day pay. 4 hours or more is a full day. Upon arrival and before the sub hours begin, there is the chance that services may not be needed. Should this happen, the substitute may be sent home and in turn not eligible for sub pay as a result. So we discussed this briefly earlier. So again, if you show up and there is not a job for you, you do not get paid. So because those circumstances do happen, just know that just because you signed up for a job doesn't mean you'll get paid for it. If there is no job by the time you show up that morning, you unfortunately do not get paid. Direct deposit is offered to substitutes, so just make sure that if you are wanting to do direct deposit, that you indicate that in the system. But your first paycheck will be an actual check, and then all of the other paychecks will be direct deposit. Next page just shows all of the different campuses that we have: elementary, middle school, high school. You'll see the address and a good contact number. So you'll see all of our elementary schools on the first page, and then you have middle school, high school, and some of our special campuses on the next page. Same thing here as well, our Victoria Success Academy, as well as our JJC, Juvenile Justice Center. JJC doesn't typically ask for subs. They have a way of working through it on their campus, but just so that you're aware of the location and their phone number. Then Smart Find Express. So there are many pages about Smart Find Express within this handbook. I'm not going to read all of these pages to you, but Smart Find Express is our sub management system. Full-time employees as well as substitutes use this program. Employees that are taking a leave day go into Smart Find Express and request a day off. If that particular employee needs a sub, that's when Smart Find Express then starts trying to find a sub for that position. That's where you come in as a substitute using the sub side of it to pick up jobs. But Smart Find Express is that sub management system, as well as keeping track of leaves and absences for our full-time employees. So these are just the icons that you may see in different locations with Smart Find Express. And then the next few pages show you how to set up your Smart Find account. If you need assistance, please feel free to come into our office, and our HR clerk, Spring Ganem, does a wonderful job of sitting down with our substitutes and going through this process, because it can be tricky from time to time. So if you are needing some assistance with that, please come in. We'll be more than happy to help you get set up. So again, this is just that initial setup when it's your first time getting logged into Smart Find. Then the next few pages talk about reviewing available jobs by phone, reviewing or canceling assignments, and then also you'll see it on the web browser. So some of you are going to want to use the phone, some of you are going to want to use the web browser. And then we also have an app. So lots of different ways that you can pick up jobs within Smart Find Express. So these pages have all of that information and a step-by-step guide on how to do that. Again, going over available jobs, picking up jobs, reviewing assignments, how to cancel assignments. All of that is within those pages. And then the next page, page 38, shows you how to get the app. So if you would prefer to be able to search for jobs and select jobs on your phone, this is the most easiest and convenient way. So this shows you what the Smart Find Express app looks like. So whether you have an Android or an Apple device, you're going to look for this icon. And then once the app has been downloaded, you'll open the app and enter VISD's district code, LLLG. Once you've entered the district's code, you'll select our district and enter in your login credentials. Same thing as if you're needing assistance calling and setting up your PIN and your profile. We'll also assist you if you need help with the app. Feel free to come in with your phone. We'll help you get that taken care of. Again, more pages on how to search for jobs, pick up jobs, all within Smart Find Express. So again, pay close attention to all of these pages. And then the rest of this handbook is all about the different policies and regulations that we have within VISD. You want to just make sure that you are aware of those. We reference DH local often when it comes to misconduct of employees, because we have to tie everything to a standard. So we want to make sure that you are following all of those employee standards of conduct so that we don't run into an issue where you have to come in and we have to discuss misconduct. So again, as I mentioned, the majority of the last pages of this handbook all deal with all the different regulations and policies. So I'm going to scroll through this and get us to the last two pages. And the last two pages have to do with cell phones. We have implemented a policy as of last year. So this is the second year that we've been doing this policy, but it's called Off and Away Wins the Day. So no cell, bell to bell, personal communication device guidelines. There are 2 pages regarding this, but in a nutshell, we ask that students have their phones put away at all times. Elementary, middle school, high school, that their cell phones need to be put away in a backpack or somewhere else to where it is not out. And so as a substitute, you will want to help monitor that and ensure that students do not have those things out. All of our students, for the most part, have some kind of device that they can use in the classroom. 3rd through 12th grade all have Chromebooks that they use for classroom purposes. And then our littles have iPads and other devices. So at no time does a student need the cell phone in order to do instructional work. So again, we ask that substitutes help us with monitoring that. But that is what these 2 pages refer to. If you have questions about that, please make sure that you speak with the campus administrator in case they have any additional guidelines or any additional guidance that they can give you in terms of this policy. So again, this document that we just went over encompasses your roles and responsibilities, as well as your expectations of being a substitute in VISD. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are always in need of substitutes. We appreciate our substitutes, and we want to make sure that all employees, substitutes, teachers, paras, everyone is doing everything that we can to ensure that our students are in a safe environment so that they can learn, they can grow, and they can achieve excellence. And so our Human Resources Department, as well as the district, we again thank you for everything that you have done if you've been a substitute before, or everything you are going to do for us if you are joining us as a brand new substitute. Because again, we have absences on the daily, and campuses cannot function without substitutes being in the classroom and assisting. So as I mentioned as well, you can find this document in multiple locations, a link within the training and on our website. And so make sure that you take the time to really go through this document and read it and ensure that you understand the expectations. And then if you have any questions or need any assistance or guidance, please reach out to myself or my clerk, Spring Gannam. We'll be happy to assist you with any of your substitute needs. And with that, I'm going to close out this training session. And again, ask away if you have any questions or need anything from us.